For Aristotle, all humans aim at some good. So in everything that we do, we're aiming for some good, and that all these lead to some ultimate good, the highest good. So for instance, say I want to go to university to achieve a degree. That's the good that I want to achieve, a degree. But why? We can always ask why to this. So why do I want to do that? Well, perhaps it's because I want to go into a certain career. But why do I want to go in that career? Well, perhaps it's because it's a topic that I find really interesting. I want to spend my time investigating. And we can keep asking why. And Aristotle says that we keep asking why, we get to the highest good. And the highest good is eudaimonia. Eudaimonia is the highest good, and it basically means sort of a state of happiness or well-being. In other words, everything that we do, every action that we take is aiming towards being happy. It's aiming towards happiness. But what is a happy human life? To answer this question, Aristotle utilizes what's called the function argument. So if we look at animals, animals have certain features that make them well suited to their own characteristic activities. For instance, you have spiders, which are good at making webs. Chameleons have a characteristic camouflage, and this is called their proper function. Human tools also have a proper function. Hammers are for hammering and prying nails. And what makes a hammer a good hammer or a spider a good spider depends on how well they perform their function. A hammer that doesn't hammer nails very good isn't a good hammer, and a spider that can't make very good webs, I mean, isn't a good spider. Thus, there is a connection between goodness and function. Goodness is fulfilling your function. We need only find the proper function for humans, which we do by identifying what is unique to humans, what is characteristic, uniquely characteristic of us, and then we can determine what is good for us. And therefore, what constitutes a happy human life. For Aristotle, our proper function is rationality. Therefore, a good life would be one in which reason is exercised well. The Greek for this is telos, for the proper function. It's also referred to as telos. There are various ways in which we can use our rationality. It may take the form of practical rationality. We may hone some practical skill like that of a craftsman, or it may be more intellectual. In fact, Aristotle goes on to argue that a life of contemplation, which is the pursuit of knowledge for its own sake, is the ultimate way to reason well. Now let's see why this is important for ethics. Aristotle divides the soul into a rational part and a non-rational part. The moral virtues are part of the non-rational soul. The rational soul is intellectual virtues. This includes things like doing philosophy. But the most important for our purposes is the intellectual virtue of practical wisdom, or Phronesis. Now for Aristotle, moral virtue is the habit of choosing the mean between the extremes of excess and deficiency. In order to identify and exercise the golden mean correctly, and to make such behaviour habitual, we must use practical wisdom, which, as an intellectual virtue, is under the control of reason. So now we can bring the pieces together. To be happy, we must perform our function. Our function is to reason well, and it is through reasoning well that we can also become virtuous. This is because we use practical wisdom to form the habit of choosing the mean between the extremes, the virtue between the vices of excess and of deficiency. In the next video, we'll look more closely at the doctrine of the mean.